Besem Ab, Weld, Wemefeskedus, Adu Amlak, Amen. Besem Ab, Weld, Wemefeskedus, Adu Amlak, Amen. Besem Ab, Weld, Wemefeskedus, Adu Amlak, Amen. Good morning, blessed love. So it's quite a long reading this morning, chapter 41. So strap in, and hopefully we'll have time for a little reasoning at the end. Give thanks. So it comes to pass at the end of 2 years of days that Pharaoh is dreaming, and behold, he is standing by the river, and behold, from the river coming up are 7 cows of beautiful appearance and fat in flesh, and they feed amongst the reeds. And behold, 7 other cows are coming up after them out of the river, of bad appearance and lean in flesh, and they stand near the cows on the edge of the river. And the cows of bad appearance and lean in flesh and eat up the cows of beautiful appearance and fat. And Pharaoh awakens, and he sleeps. The dreams a second time, and behold, 7 ears are coming up out of one stalk, fat and good. And behold, 7 ears, thin and blasted with the east wind, are springing up after them. And the thin ears of corn swallow up the 7 fat and full ears. And Pharaoh awakens, and behold, a dream. And it comes to pass in the morning that his spirit is moved, and he sends and calls for the enchanters of Egypt and all its wise men. And Pharaoh recounts to them his dream, and there is no one interpreter of them to Pharaoh. And the chief of the butlers speaks to Pharaoh, saying, I mention my sin this day. Pharaoh has been angry against his servants and put me in the confinement of the house of the chief of the executioners. Me and the chief of the bakers, and we dream a dream in one night, I and he, each according to the interpretation of his dream we have dreamed. And there is with us a youth, a Hebrew, servant to the chief of the executioners. And we recount to him, and he interprets to us our dreams, to each according to his dream he has interpreted. And it comes to pass, as he has interpreted to us, so it has been. Me he put back on my station, and him he hanged. And Pharaoh sends and calls Joseph, and they cause him to run out of the pit, and he shaves and changes his garments and comes to Pharaoh. And Pharaoh says to Joseph, I have dreamed a dream, and there is no interpreter of it. And I have heard concerning you, saying, you understand the dream to interpret it. And Joseph answers Pharaoh, saying, without me, God answers Pharaoh with peace. And Pharaoh speaks to Joseph, in my dream, behold, I am standing on the edge of the river, and behold, out of the river coming out are 7 cows, fat in flesh, and they are beautiful form, and they feed amongst the reeds. And behold, 7 other cows are coming up after them, thin and very bad form, and lean in flesh. I have not seen like these in all the land of Egypt for badness. And the lean and bad cows eat up the first 7 fat cows, and they come into their midst. And it has not been known that they have come into their midst, and their appearance is bad as at the commencement. And then I awake, and I see in my dream, and behold, 7 ears of corn are coming up on one stalk, full and good. And behold, 7 ears, withered, thin and blasted, within an east wind, are springing up after them. And the thin ears swallow the 7 good ears. And I tell it to the enchanters, and that are none declaring it to me. And Joseph says to Pharaoh, the dream of Pharaoh is one. That which God is doing, he has declared to Pharaoh. The 7 good cows are 7 years, and the 7 good ears of corn are 7 years. The dream is one. And the 7 thin and bad cows which are coming up after them are 7 years. And the 7 empty ears, blasted with the east wind, they are 7 years of famine. This is the thing which I have spoken to Pharaoh. God has shown Pharaoh what he is doing. Behold, 7 years are coming of great abundance in all the land of Egypt, and 7 years of famine have arisen after them, and all the plenty is forgotten in the land of Egypt, and the famine has finished the land. And the plenty is not known in the land because of that famine afterward, for it is very grievous. And because of the repeating of the dream to Pharaoh twice, surely the thing is established by God, and God is hurrying to do it. And now let Pharaoh provide a man, intelligent and wise, and set him over the land of Egypt. Let Pharaoh make and appoint overseers of the land, and receive 1/5 of the land of Egypt in the 7 years of plenty. And they gather all the food of these good years that are coming, and heap up the grain under the hand of Pharaoh, food in the cities, that they have kept it. And the food has been for a store for the land, and the 7 years of famine which are in the land of Egypt. And the land is cut off by famine. And the thing is good in the eyes of Pharaoh, and in the eyes of all his servants. And Pharaoh says to his servants, do we find like this a man in whom the Spirit of God is? And Pharaoh says to Joseph, after God's causing you to know all this, there is none intelligent and wise as you. You are over my house, and at your mouth do all my people kiss. Only in the throne I am greater than you. And Pharaoh says to Joseph, see, I have put you over all the land of Egypt. And Pharaoh turns aside his seal ring from off his hand, and puts it in the hand of Joseph, and clothes him with garments of fine linen, and places a chain of gold on his neck, and causes him to ride in the second chariot which he has then proclaimed before him, bow the knee. And he set him over all the land of Egypt. And Pharaoh says to Joseph, I am Pharaoh, and without you a man does not lift up his hand and his foot in all the land of Egypt. And Pharaoh calls Joseph's name Zapna-Paneah, and he gives to him Asenath, daughter of Potiphera, priest of On, for a wife. And Joseph goes out over the land of Egypt. And Joseph is a son of 30 years in his standing before Pharaoh, king of Egypt. And Joseph goes out from the presence of Pharaoh, and passes over through all the land of Egypt. And the land makes in 7 years of plenty by handfuls. And he gathers all the food of the 7 years which have been in the land of Egypt, and puts the food in the cities. And the food of the field which is around each city he has put in its midst. And Joseph gathers the grain as sand of the sea, multiplying exceedingly until he has ceased to number, for there is no number. And to Joseph were born 2 sons before the year of famine comes, whom Amseth, daughter of Potiphera, the priest of On, has borne to him. And Joseph calls the name of the firstborn Manasseh. And God has made me forget all my labour, and all the house of my father. And the name of the second son he called Ephraim. For God has caused me to be fruitful in the land of my affliction. And the 7 years of plenty are completed, which has been in the land of Egypt. And the 7 years of famine began to come. And Joseph said, and famine is in all the lands, but in all the land of Egypt has been bread. And all the land of Egypt is famished. And the people cry to Pharaoh for bread. And Pharaoh says to the Egyptians, go to Joseph, that which he says to you do. And the famine has been all over the face of the land, and Joseph opens up the places which he has grain in them, and sells to the Egyptians. And the famine is severe in the land of Egypt, and all the earth has come to Egypt to buy to Joseph for the famine was severe in all the earth. For these few words I give thanks, blessed love. So yeah, it's a long chapter. So just to very quickly recap, Pharaoh has two dreams and no one can interpret them. So he goes to Joseph, and the butler for the previous chapter didn't forget Joseph. He says to Pharaoh, there's a man that I met in prison 2 years ago and he can interpret your dreams. And Joseph says to Pharaoh, your dreams mean there's going to be 7 years of plenty and 7 years of famine. And God is telling you that he's doing this. He's warning you in advance. So as a reward, Pharaoh gives Joseph the top position in the whole land, and Joseph saves the grain in the first 7 years and reaps some of the grain, put that in storage, so when the 7 years of famine happens, there's enough grain to give and feed the people. And the famine doesn't only grip the land of the Pharaoh, it grips all of the surrounding areas as well. So Joseph becomes an extremely powerful individual because of his ingenuity and his imagination with interpreting those dreams, with the talent that God has given him. So just very quickly, so I like to keep these kind of under 13 minutes if possible. But Joseph was rewarded for his patience. In the last chapter, he thought he was forgotten, but his kindness was rewarded in God's time. When we do good, we know we shouldn't do good just to heap rewards later. We know we shouldn't be doing good to get thanks, etc. But as humans, we also don't want to be forgotten when we do good. And we, even though it's borrowed from another religion, we believe in this thing called karma, that if we do good unto other people, people will do good unto you. And that was Jesus's commandment when he came. And we'll see that in the New Testament. So he wasn't forgotten and his good works weren't forgotten. And there's also nothing expedient in the fact that, he was in prison. So he said to the butler, don't forget me when you get outside, and he wasn't forgotten. So his ingenuity was rewarded. He's still doing good to the people. He's not taking his power and making himself rich. He's taken his power of imagination and interpretation and actually saying, if we store a lot of the grain in the first 7 years, we can feed the people in the famine 7 years. And that's what he does. So he's not doing it for personal gain. He's doing it for the good of wider society and the nation. And that is an important lesson I think we should all learn. Give thanks, blessed love. Have a good day.